Imagine trying to find a trend in messy sales data with random spikes and drops. You might want to know if sales are increasing over time or if the effects are just seasonal. This is why we smooth time series data using moving averages. What is a moving average? The purpose of calculating a moving average is to smooth the time series data and reveal the underlying trend. The number of points used in the moving average is often based on the natural cycle of the data. For example, if you're receiving data for every day of the week, you might use a 7-point moving average. Alternatively, if you were using data for every month of the year, you might use a 12-point moving average. In these two examples given here, for the same set of data that represent the number of students in a class over time, we've used two different moving averages to smooth them. On the left here, you can see that the data is smoothed using a 3-point moving average. This shows that the underlying trend, the number of students in the class, is decreasing over time. If we instead chose to use a 5-point moving average to smooth the data, you can see that it still shows the same underlying decreasing trend. However, the data has been smoothed even more. This leads us to discuss the number of points we use in the moving average. Essentially, the higher the number of points in your moving average, the smoother the data becomes. But the more data points you lose at the start and at the end. For a 3-point moving average, we will lose two values altogether, one at the beginning and one at the end. For a 5-point moving average, we will lose 4 points altogether, 2 at the beginning and 2 at the end. So how do we calculate a moving average? This time series graph shows the number of visitors to a tourist attraction every 4 months in the years 2011 to 2014. You can see that there is a pretty clear increasing trend. But if we wanted to look at this trend more deeply, we're going to have to calculate the moving averages. For this particular one, we will calculate a 3-point moving average because there are 3 seasons in a cycle. We're given our number of visitors every 4 months in 2011. So there were 45,000 visitors in the first 4 months of 2011, 26,000 in the second 4 months, and 34,000 in the third 4 months. To calculate the 3-point moving average, we're going to use the first 3 points and we're going to find their average. The calculation will look like 45 plus 26 plus 34 all divided by 3. So the moving average for the first 12 months is 35,000 people visiting the attraction. Remember, when we're calculating the moving average, we need to use consecutive values, and the average is placed at the center of the group. So that would lead to us losing the first point here. To calculate the next moving average, we simply slide down 1 in the list and we'll calculate the average of the next 3 points. So 26, 34, and 52. And the process repeats like this until we have completed the entire table. Notice that when we get to the end, once I've used my final 3 points to produce the moving average of 53.3, which lines up with the third 4 months of 2013, I no longer have 3 points to create an average from, and so I'll also lose that final piece of data there. Now that my moving averages have been calculated, I can plot them on my time series graph to discover the underlying trend. For the first point, where the moving average is 35, lines up with the second 4 months of 2011. The next point, 37.3, lines up with the third 4 months of 2011. And we can go on with this process until all points have been plotted and connected with straight lines. The smooth version of the graph helps reveal the trend more clearly than the raw fluctuating values. So how do we interpret the smooth data? Once we calculate and plot the moving averages, we can start to interpret the trend. Ask yourself a few questions. Is the trend increasing, or is the data rising overall? Is it decreasing? Is the data falling over time? Or is there no trend? The data might be fluctuating, but there's no clear moving of data up or down. This kind of insight is what businesses and analysts rely on to make decisions. In the two examples we have here, you can see pretty clearly the trend of the first graph is a clear decreasing trend. For our second example, you can see that there is an increasing trend. Let's recap. The purpose of smoothing is to identify the underlying trend. The number of points should match the natural cycle of the data. Daily figures have a 7-point moving average, monthly figures have a 12-point moving average. The more points we use in our moving average, the smoother it is, but the more values that are lost. Moving averages will help us to decide if the trend is increasing, decreasing, or if there is no trend at all.